Julian Croft moved through LAX's Terminal 5 with quiet assurance, his suit crisp, his leather garment bag in hand, and a first-class boarding pass to New York. He was on his way to deliver the keynote at the East Coast Environmental Summit. This wasn't new for him. What was new was the tense atmosphere. Gate 22 hadn't filled up yet. A few passengers loitered nearby. Julian approached the counter, offering a nod to the young gate agent, Lena. She glanced at the boarding pass, hesitated, then looked him over, really looked, before speaking. "This line is for premium passengers only." "I know," Julian replied calmly. She scanned the pass, then paused mid-scan. Her eyes darted toward a coworker. "Can I see your ID?" Julian blinked. "That's not standard procedure." "Just a security measure," she insisted. Without a fuss, he handed over his driver's license. She didn't even scan it, just set it down awkwardly. "Wait here a moment." He said nothing as a security officer appeared within seconds, standing stiffly beside him, silent. Julian stepped out of the queue. He didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. Instead, he quietly dialed a number. "Bethany, I need the Skyward Air contract, Eastern routes," he said softly. "I'm at gate LX22. He kept the phone at his side after hanging up, his gaze steady. Behind the counter, Lena made an announcement about a slight delay. Whispers began to ripple through the line. A man in a polo shirt leaned forward. "What's going on? Is he causing trouble?" Julian heard it, but stayed composed. What Lena didn't realize, what no one at that gate seemed to know, was that Julian Croft wasn't just another first-class traveler. He was the man behind a $48 million deal Skyward Air had just signed to reinvent their in-flight dining with sustainable, locally sourced produce. His company, Croft Agri-Partners, had become a quiet juggernaut, but to Lena, he was just a face that didn't belong. Born in Springfield, Missouri, Julian had built his enterprise from the bed of a pickup truck. At 15, he sorted produce with his mother in a grocery store. At 23, he opened a roadside stand. By 30, he had found a market gap, clean, local goods for high-demand retailers, and filled it. Now, he supplied dozens of chains and had just clinched the airline's biggest food service revamp in a decade. He never bragged about it, but he had principles. And the scene unfolding now wasn't about inconvenience. It was about being misjudged. Bethany called back. "I've got the contract," she said. "Want me to notify Skyward?" "Flag it," he replied. "Let's give them a chance to recognize it themselves." Lena, meanwhile, was flustered. She had joined LAX a month ago and was eager to prove she could follow protocol, but she lacked intuition. Her colleague, Sophia, walked over. "What's going on?" "He says he's in first class." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "His pass says he is. Are you sure there's a problem?" Lena didn't respond. Passengers began to complain. Lena's earpiece crackled. "Lena, this is Supervisor Miller. Gate 22 flagged for delay. Status. Passenger issue," she mumbled, her voice dry. Sophia stepped back, then leaned in and whispered. "Do you know who that is?" "That's Julian Croft. Skyward's new catering guy." Lena froze. "What?" "Yeah, we just got that memo in the vendor brief." Lena's heart thumped. She glanced at Julian, who hadn't moved. Still holding his pass, still calm. His stillness made her panic more. "We should just board him," Sophia said. "If we do, it'll look like I screwed up." Lena's throat tightened. Upstairs in a glass-walled office overlooking the tarmac, Victoria Vance was reviewing quarterly reports when her assistant buzzed in. Urgent call from someone representing Julian Croft. Victoria's brow lifted. She picked up. "This is Victoria." "Hi, Victoria." Bethany Geller, assistant to Julian Croft. "He's currently being held up at gate 22. Victoria sat up. "Held up?" "Yes. No incident, no policy breach, just delayed, but I'd suggest addressing it before the press boards the same flight." At gate 22, Julian stepped away from the glass wall and returned to the counter. Still silent as Lena's eyes locked on him. She could feel the moment slipping out of her control. Sophia was texting someone. The security officer, now aware he may have misstepped, shifted uncomfortably. And then the gate speaker buzzed. "Paging Mr. Julian Croft, please report to." But Julian was already there. His phone buzzed again. "Bethany, Skyward's VP just responded. She said he's calling Victoria now." Lena's radio lit up. "Lena, this is Miller again. Don't touch anything. Corporate's on the line." Victoria Vance stood beside the jetway as Julian Croft boarded. The moment she handed over the signed contract, she knew something irreversible had shifted. Not just in corporate prestige, but in how power was understood inside Skyward Air. Quiet power, the kind Julian possessed, didn't announce itself. It simply moved. Julian took a seat in 1A, declining small talk, declining sparkling water. The gestures meant nothing. What mattered was what happened next. Not for him, but for the thousands who'd fly skyward next week, next month, next year. Meanwhile, Lena sat slumped behind the gate desk, her headset finally removed. Sophia returned silently and handed her a printout of Julian's passenger profile. There, under his photo, it said, Executive Vendor. Do not delay or redirect. Direct Access VP Office. Too late. Upstairs, Victoria returned to her office and shut the door. Her inbox had already begun flooding. Legal, HR, PR. But there was also something else. A forwarded video clip, just 37 seconds. Captured by the woman with a floral carry-on bag. It showed Julian standing still while a security guard stood next to him, silent. It ended with Victoria's arrival and the sharp audio of, Mr. Croft, I'd like to speak with you privately. It was already being shared on internal Slack channels under the title, Gate 22 Fiasco. Downstairs, the ripple had reached other terminals. Gate agents were quietly being told to re-review all VIP notations. Internal memos were being sent with the subject urgent, vendor sensitivity refresh. The term Croft Protocol had already been coined in one department. Liam, still pacing at Skyward's Denver headquarters, received a brief update. Mr. Croft is aboard. Situation stabilized. Internal delays triggered for retraining rollout. Liam leaned on the conference table. Let's get the VP of Culture on this and pull the fall campaign. Julian won't want his face on it now. Back in 1A, Julian opened his folder again. Not the contract, but a smaller sheet tucked behind a photo of his father's hands, weathered and calloused, taken a year before he passed. Underneath, a handwritten quote, People may not remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. He folded it, placed it back inside. The plane began to taxi. From a nearby row, a young black flight attendant named Samuel quietly passed a note folded 3 times. Julian looked up. Samuel didn't speak. He just gave a respectful nod and moved on. Julian unfolded the note. Thank you for not yelling. Thank you for being the kind of man my dad always talked about becoming. Watching you stand still changed something in me. For the first time that morning, Julian blinked slowly and looked out the window. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just aware. The plane lifted off, 38,000 feet above the Midwest. As passengers dozed or watched movies, Victoria drafted an internal memo. It was simple, direct, and unsigned, meant to be attributed to executive leadership, but clearly shaped by her own hand. Mistakes in judgment are human. Patterns of exclusion are systemic. We must change both. She hovered over send, then pressed it. At LAX, Lena was being quietly escorted to HR. She wasn't fired. Skyward had no official grounds, and Julian hadn't demanded anything, but the evaluation was underway. In another wing, the internal diversity lead was pulled into a session titled Revised Training Response, Gate Level Discretion. On the plane, Marcus returned with a warm towel. Mr. Croft, is there anything we can do to improve your experience today? Julian looked at him. Yes, stop making this about today. Marcus blinked. Sir. Make it about the next 100 passengers like me, Julian continued. The ones who don't own companies, the ones who don't have lawyers on speed dial. Make it about them. Marcus nodded solemnly. Yes, sir. When the plane landed in New York, Julian exited first. Victoria had arranged for a private car, but he declined. Instead, he pulled his bag behind him and walked straight into the terminal like everyone else. He passed a billboard, Skyward Air, refreshing the skies. His own name had been slated to appear on that board next month. He hoped it wouldn't. Back in LA, Sophia sat at her break room table, scrolling through Reddit. One post was gaining traction on our airline incidents. Man in first class held from boarding despite having a valid ticket. Airline tried to fix it once they realized he was a major vendor. But it shouldn't have taken that much. This happens every day, just not to people who can call the VP. The comment beneath read simply, respect shouldn't require status. What do you think? Was this just a case of corporate overreach correcting itself, or a wake-up call about deeper issues in how we judge people based on appearance, status, or assumptions? Leave a comment. Was Julian right to stay silent? Should Lena have been fired? How should companies respond to unconscious bias like this? Let's talk about it.